Hey everyone, and a really big welcome back to LexTalk. We're so excited to be starting another deep dive with you,
Great to be back.
especially for all you educators, parents, and, well, anyone who loves English and linguistics here in Thailand. This is Season 5, Episode 8.
And today we're tackling something pretty significant.
Yeah, big one. How Thailand's national education policies are actually shaping English learning. We're looking at public schools, private schools, the whole picture.
From curriculum design, testing, all the way to teacher development and, what really happens in the classroom.
Exactly. We want to understand the engine driving English education in the kingdom.
It's a crucial discussion, really.
Oh, and before we dive in, please don't forget to follow Lex Talk everywhere. Our website, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, SoundCloud, Spotify.
Just search at LexTalk Podcast. Easy to find.
Perfect. So let's get into it. This national education policy for English, where does it start? What's the official setup?
Okay, so the main player is the Ministry of Education, the MOE. They established the national curriculum.
Right, and that's the BE 2562 core curriculum we hear about.
That's the one. It's the key document. And a fundamental part is that English is compulsory
Compulsory from when?
from the very beginning. Pratham 1, so grade 1.
Wow, okay, early start. And how do they structure the learning? What are the goals?
Well, the learning objectives are pegged to the CEFR, the Common European Framework of Reference for Languages.
Ah, the CEFR. So the idea is to align with international standards.
Exactly. It aims to make Thai students' English proficiency recognizable globally and, importantly, focus on practical communication skills, not just grammar rules.
That makes sense. So the policy sets this direction. How does it actually, trickle down into the schools? Does it affect textbooks, class time?
Oh, absolutely. It has a direct impact.
Yeah.
Policies influence textbook choices. They dictate how many hours per week are dedicated to English.
Okay.
And they set the benchmarks for national tests. Think about the ONET.
Right, the big national education test.
Yeah. Schools have to prepare students for it, and there's a major English component, often heavily focused on, well, grammar.
So that testing pressure really shapes what happens in class, doesn't it?
It definitely does. The policy requirement drives the preparation.
Okay, so we have this framework, but one thing that seems to come up again and again is this disconnect, a gap between the policy written down and what teachers and students actually experience.
Yes, that's a major theme, a real challenge. You have these national policies aiming for consistency, high standards, but the reality on the ground can be very different. There are huge disparities, especially between urban and rural schools.
Even though they have the same policy, how does that work?
It often comes down to resources
Mm-hmm.
and teacher preparedness. A school in, say, Bangkok might have access to the latest materials, tech, maybe more teachers with strong English skills.
Compared to a rural school.
Exactly. A school in a remote area might lack reliable internet, updated books, or teachers who've had specific training on, say, implementing CEFR effectively. It's not just about money, but the whole support system.
So same instructions, but very different kitchens to cook in, basically.
That's a good way to put it.
And what about past reforms? We've heard about initiatives like Thailand 4.0 links or English speaking year. Did those stick?
Often, they haven't had the lasting impact hoped for. And a key reason seems to be a lack of consistent follow-through,
Meaning?
meaning you announce a policy, maybe an exciting campaign, but then the sustained support, the funding, the training, the monitoring kind of fades or isn't robust enough. Implementation needs constant effort, not just a launch event.
Right, it's not a one-off thing.
Right.
Which brings us neatly to the teachers themselves. What do the policies say about training them, hiring them, especially foreign teachers?
Well, the situation with hiring, especially foreign teachers, can be a bit unclear. Policies can vary quite a bit depending on the region within Thailand. There isn't always total clarity.
Okay. And for training in general, the government wants CEFR-aligned teaching, right?
Yes, that's the goal.
Yeah.
But providing the actual training to get teachers comfortable and effective with CEFR, that seems inconsistent.
So the support isn't always there.
It's patchy. And there's also a perceived lack of strong incentives for professional development, specifically for Thai English teachers, things they can easily access and that really help them grow.
So teachers are expected to teach in this modern CEFR way, but might not get the consistent support needed. What happens then?
Well, what we often see is teachers falling back on what they know or what's easily available, maybe more traditional methods, lots of worksheets.
Because they need to prepare for the tests.
Exactly. That pressure from standardized tests like ONET is huge. If the test focuses heavily on grammar,
Then grammar gets the focus in class. Makes sense, unfortunately.
It leads to prioritizing grammar drills, maybe overdeveloping fluency or confidence in speaking.
Which takes us straight into testing and evaluation. We mentioned ONET. Are there others? And what's the main focus of assessment, according to policy?
Besides ONET, you sometimes see TOEFL Junior or TOEIC, maybe in specific programs or schools.
Okay.
But the general trend, the main emphasis in the national system, remains pretty strongly on grammar. Grammatical accuracy.
And the impact of that.
The impact is that students, and sometimes teachers, focus on studying for the test, memorizing rules, practicing question types.
Rather than actually learning to use the language.
Precisely. It can become more about passing the exam than achieving real communicative competence in English for everyday life or work.
It's that classic teaching to the test scenario, isn't it?
It really is.
And a really interesting point that came up is about speaking and listening. Are those skills prioritized in national testing policy?
Currently, within the public system's national mandates, no. There aren't requirements to really assess speaking and listening in a comprehensive way at that high level.
Wow. So if they aren't tested nationally.
They tend to get less attention in the classroom compared to grammar and reading, which are tested heavily.
And that contributes to the gap we sometimes see, where students might know grammar rules but struggle to hold a conversation.
Absolutely. If oral fluency isn't formally valued through assessment, it often takes a backseat. That directly impacts students' ability to use English confidently in real-world situations.
Okay, so we've laid out the policies, the challenges, the testing issues. What about solutions? What kind of policy reforms or future directions are being suggested?
There are several interesting ideas floating around. One big one is about involving local stakeholders more.
Meaning teachers and students.
Yes, exactly. Getting more input from teachers on the front lines and even students when designing the curriculum, making it less purely top-down.
So it actually fits the reality in the classroom better.
Potentially, yes. A more collaborative approach might lead to policies that are more practical and relevant locally.
That sounds sensible. What else?
Another idea is creating different learning tracks. Maybe one focused on English for communication, for everyday use, and another on English for academic purposes, for students heading to university.
Ah, catering to different needs and goals.
Right. Recognizing that not everyone needs the exact same type of English, and then there's a push for more incentives.
Incentives for what?
For things like bilingual education programs, project-based learning methods that really get students using the language, and crucially, for comprehensive, ongoing teacher retraining and development, real support.
And I guess that also links back to assessment, changing how we test.
Definitely.
Yeah.
A concrete step could be piloting CEFR-based speaking assessments, maybe starting in upper secondary schools.
That would send a strong signal, wouldn't it?
It absolutely would. It says, hey, speaking matters, communication matters, and gives teachers and students a clear reason to focus on developing those skills.
Okay, so let's try and bring this all together. What we've seen today is that Thailand's national education policy sets the stage for English learning, the curriculum, the tests.
It provides the blueprint, yes.
But making it truly successful, developing students who can really use English, depends hugely on bridging that gap between the policy and the day-to-day practice in schools across the country.
It's about implementation.
We've talked about the challenges with resources, teacher training, the heavy focus on grammar and testing.
And also some promising ideas for the future. More local input, different learning tracks, better teacher support, and rethinking assessment.
Policy sets the direction, but it really comes down to effective support and execution on the ground.
Well put. It's the teachers, the resources, the consistent follow-through that make the difference.
Right. Well, that was a really insightful look into English education policy here. And that brings us to the end of this deep dive.
Time flies.
It does. Now for our next exploration, episode 9, we're diving into a really hot topic, often debated.
Oh, which one?
Should English only be taught by native speakers? We'll be looking at all sides of that discussion.
Ah, yes. That will definitely be an interesting conversation. Looking forward to it.
Me too. So make sure you join us for that. And please keep following LexTalk. Subscribe on your favorite platform to stay connected with everything English and linguistics in Thailand.
We appreciate you tuning in.
Let's talk. Let's learn. Let's LexTalk.